Hi, I'm Julie from This Beautiful Farm Life. Today I'm going to talk to you about my grandmother's vintage china cupboard. Have you ever had an old heirloom piece and you didn't really like it the way that it was, but you just didn't know if you should change it or paint it or refinish it? Well, that was the case with this cupboard. I've had this cupboard since I was in high school, and when I first received it, it was just a stained brown mahogany cupboard. It had glass right here in this part of the door, both on the top and the bottom, and inside the back of it was just an unfinished pressboard. And so it wasn't real pretty. It was made by a local craftsman, but it was never quite finished the way it should have been. But it belonged to my grandmother, and it was hers, and that was the way she had used it with her china, and that was the way I remembered it. So I had a very difficult time changing it. But after about 5 to 10 years somewhere of marriage and using it for my china and looking into this cupboard and seeing my china against that ugly backboard, I finally decided it was okay to paint the back because it wasn't very finished anyway. So inside I painted the back, made it all white, and that helped quite a bit, but it still was never the cupboard that I really wanted it to be. I don't really care for a lot of stained dark wood, and mahogany is not my favorite wood anyway. So finally, just a couple of years ago, I decided I was either going to get rid of it or I was going to refinish it. So finally bit the bullet and jumped in and did it. So the first thing that I did is I had my son, who was then 14, take out the glass panels and put in this beadboard. Now, this beadboard was just a scrap that was left from a bathroom remodel, and I had just enough to do it so we could line up the lines and they all looked like they'd always been that way. And he did a really great job. There's a piece of wood trim on the inside that he pulled out that was holding the glass and then saved and put it back in. So it was really slick and easy to do. And then I brought it in, the doors were off, all the hardware was off, and the cabinet was just there ready to finish. So after many, many years of use, it needed a good cleaning. So the first thing I did was take some denatured alcohol and a rag and just clean it really good so that all the grease and the dirt and the grime that was built up on it would break down and I could get a nice paint coat on it. And then I did a crazy thing. I didn't have any other paint on hand that I really liked, and I wanted it to be light colored like my walls. And so I had leftover wall paint from my kitchen, which is the same color as my whole house. And I wanted this cupboard to have a built-in look like it had always been here, like it was in my grandma's house. And so I decided to just paint it with the wall paint. So I used a satin latex enamel wall paint, which I know is not usually done, and I don't usually do that, but I did. And it's been really durable, and it worked just fine. So I've never done it again, but it worked this time. So I gave it a primer coat first because it was really dark, and then 2 coats of the wall paint, and that was what it took to cover it nicely. I did sand it before I started to give it a little bit of a rough texture so that paint would stick well to it, and tack clothed it off. Then when I painted it, it all stuck really well. Then I gave it a couple days to really harden and be solid before I messed with it at all. And then I did take some sandpaper and I lightly sanded the areas that would look like they were naturally worn. In my house with all of our children, everything looks a little naturally worn, so I wanted it to look a little bit broken, so when it did get scratched, I wouldn't feel so bad. And then I restored all the hardware, polished it up and put it back on, so it looks really great. And at the time when we were first married, I didn't really care for this hardware because it was all kind of copperish looking, but now that's really really in style, and all those metals are really in, so I love it. And so now it's a cupboard that I really, really love, and I think that my grandma would be really happy that I still have it, even though I've changed it. And she'd rather me have it this way than not have it at all. So if you're debating about what to do with a little cupboard or a piece of furniture or table that you were handed down and you just really don't like it, but you know that you could paint it or change it, I just encourage you to go ahead and do it and love it and use it and have those fond memories of the person who passed it down to you. So for now, I'm just going to give you a little tour in the inside. This cupboard has become my little special place for all my little seasonal decoration items, my jars that I use for vases, for flowers from the garden, little special treasures that I've collected over the years, my twine and card making supplies and stationery, tags for gifts, little summer decor items, and things that I change in and out during the season. I have a large collection of antique flower frogs, so I stash them in here when they're not being used all over my house to hold up things. And I've always loved cherries. We live in a cherry orchard, so I've kind of collected a few of those things. And then of course, you always have jars that are older than others, but I also just stash away my jars that have a chipped rim or a unique look to the outside in here, and then those are saved for flowers and decor things, and I don't end up canning with them. So this has just become my fun place. I keep the doors shut, so I don't like it to be this busy in my house, but I love to open it up, and it just makes me smile when I get in here and see all my favorite things that I pull in and out for my home decor during the year. And I hope you enjoyed this little post and you come back and join me at the farm again for fresh, nourishing food, wholesome living, and simple farmhouse beauty. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and also join me on Facebook and Pinterest at This Beautiful Farm Life. Thanks for